Last year, industry analysts estimated that while roughly 60% of organizations will discover a cyber attack, the actual percentage of breached institutions will top 80%. As damaging attacks on IT environments continue to haunt companies and the government, and while IT itself is transforming as the traditional data center evolves into a mix of public, private, community, private hosted, and hybrid cloud configurations, security strategy, how to protect digital assets and yet make data, devices, and applications accessible, is at or near the top of every federal executive's agenda. Coming up on NITAAC Now, we'll discuss the topic of security strategy with Intel's Federal Division Chief Technologist, Steve Orrin. Welcome to NITAAC Now and to another edition of our Inside Intel series, here today with Steve Orrin, the Chief Technologist at Intel Federal. And welcome to the program, Steve.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, Todd.
So much is going on with the concepts of defending our country's data. The agencies are battling this almost non-ending arms race in cybersecurity. And I'm just very curious about how agencies, from your perspective, feel that they may be doing in this ongoing battle to detect and block these kinds of episodes from occurring. What is your perception?
So I think agencies are feeling the pain right now, and have been for some time. And they're no different than the rest of the industry when you look at the challenge of this constant evolving and increasing threat landscape. What we're seeing a lot of agencies do is look at how can they be more agile, how can they drive innovation so they can get at least further ahead of the curve than they are today. And so we're seeing both focus on setting up innovation labs, developing better practices for acquisitions and procurements, and then working more closely with industry and academia in order to get ahead of the curve, adopt technologies, try things out early, and then integrate them into the process. One of the things that a lot of agencies are struggling with is even when they have the innovation, and we're seeing some really cool innovation centers and cross-industry programs being set up, like the one we're at here in Booz Allen, the one that NIST set up with the NCCOE, the procurement process has got to change equally. And we're seeing a lot of focus right now on how do we change the way that government agencies acquire technologies and acquire services for both their infrastructure and for mission programs to make them more agile as well, and to make them be able to not be stuck with a decision that maybe was made years ago and be able to do more rapid tech refresh to keep a pace of the current threat landscape.
Part of your responsibility, Steve, is the cloud strategy at Intel. And I know you've been having discussions with federal agencies about moving to the cloud. They certainly recognize the cost and the agility and certainly the innovation advantages that represents, but that's often offset by privacy and security concerns that are acting as inhibitors. Is that what you're having to deal with, and how is what you're doing at Intel helping to ease those considerations?
Well, definitely security continues to show up as one of the top 5 issues when going to the cloud for government agencies and for the broader industry. One of the things that Intel and what we are driving for is to drive that ecosystem of capability and technologies into the cloud providers to enable them to get over some of those key hurdles. And when you look at what are some of those problem spaces are, it comes down to getting deep visibility into the infrastructure so that they can verify what their infrastructure, what their workloads, what their data is running on, and be able to verify that environment and really take the approach of trust but verify, which is a common theme that you find across infrastructure systems. Be able to then apply policies and controls onto where their workloads and where their data is moving, be able to do geofencing of both the application execution and of the data itself, and then be able to do data security in the cloud and have it seamless between the on-prem and the off-prem. And then the final step is then being able to map back what controls you've put in place to your compliance regimes and requirements, as well as to the risk management frameworks, whether it be RMF for the DoD or CSF, the cybersecurity framework that NIST put out. You need to be able to map the controls and the security mechanisms you're using for the cloud back into a framework that allows you to adjust and manage your risk both off-prem and off-prem.
You've mentioned the guidance that has been issued, but you've also said in the past that being compliant simply isn't good enough. And in this new age of mobile and internet-ready devices, the data security issue is something that really creates an obligation to go yet further and to really customize your environment. How is Intel helping to support agencies in this new world?
So Intel's taken a couple different approaches to help with this problem of data security in the new Internet of Things world. Part of it is being able to look end to end, and that's a really important part of the puzzle, of being able to look from the device through the network it communicates to all the way back to the back end or to the cloud, and provide an end-to-end story for that data, from the data acquisition through the analytics and ultimately into the visualization and decision support. And be able to secure that data throughout its life cycle, be able to do identification, identity and access management for the devices and for the systems that are accessing those devices. So to that end, Intel is driving standards with the industry and with government to help create data security standards, data governance standards, and interoperability standards. But we're also building in fundamental capabilities into our devices and then driving those as fundamental capabilities that all device manufacturers should provide, that start with things like device identity, being able to do data security from the device, have trusted storage on the device and a trusted execution environment so that you can run in a trustworthy fashion on these deployed devices. By having those fundamental building blocks on the device, it allows you then to construct the solutions that different organizations and different industries and verticals will need to adopt data security and to be able to trust those devices as they go off and do, whether it be medical or critical infrastructure, smart grid kind of use case, as well as the broader military use case as well. Having those fundamental building blocks built in, leveraging those to be able to achieve the goals.
No challenge more important in today's internet-ready world, and Intel, a trusted partner for the federal government to bring those kinds of capabilities to agencies. Steve Orrin, Chief Technologist of Intel, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of NITAAC Now and our Inside Intel series. If you have questions or feedback about this webcast, feel free to visit us on the web at www.nitac.nih.gov. Email us at nitaacsupport@nih.gov or call us toll-free at 888-773-6542. For the NITAAC Outreach webcast team, I'm Todd Schwartzrock. Please join us again soon for another episode of NITAAC Now.